Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent and you haven't yet. Subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Today, we are continuing our Summer Shootaround series that we'll be doing over a 7-week span. We've already published episodes on Arizona and Arkansas. We're working in alphabetical order here. So now we turn our attention to the Baylor Bears. Last season, Baylor finished 23-11 overall, 11-7 in the Big 12, finished tied for third in the league standings. The Bears lost their opening game in the Big 12 tournament, got a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, beat UC Santa Barbara in the round of 64, then lost to Creighton in the round of 32, finished 16th at KenPom. Top 3 scores for that team are gone, but Jalen Bridges, Langston Love, and Jonathan Chachawa are all back, and Scott Drew is enrolling a 5-star guard and some interesting transfers. I've got Baylor ranked 18th in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about that next, but first, a word from our partners.
In case you're new here, we're here to make history. We are more than the names on our back. We're the team on the front, the country on our shoulders, the city behind us, and the fire inside us. The best in the world. We got us. We don't just play the world's game. We run it.
Okay, Deadleg. Baylor is a preseason top 20 team. Can you dig it? Or you despise it?
This doesn't need to be the T every time.
Oh, I think it does.
All right, so you said they were 23-11 last season. I wish I had looked this up because I feel like when we did regular season win total a year ago on Baylor, I feel like I went lower. And you chastised me for it. And I said, you'd be wrong. And you said, I wouldn't be. You can ask Bryce. And I said, I'll ask Bryce. And then Bryce said,
this is Bryce, and I don't care.
He did not give a damn. But interesting to look back in retrospect on where Baylor was. And certainly it was a good season, but, they're losing a lot. Scott Drew's in good spirits as of late, though. Did you see him in Rucker Park for the Big 12's New York City initiative?
I did not see him. I mean, I would have liked to have gone.
Actually, why weren't you there? Actually, now that I realize it, you're in New York. The Big 12 did this whole Rucker Park, New York City initiative. You had some Big 12 coaches there. Mike Boynton went back to his old stomping grounds. Scott Drew was there. I'm not quite sure what the connection is, but I do like it. But regardless, why weren't you there?
Because this week I'm doing 5 television shows and 8 podcasts. Okay, because from the moment I wake up,
to me,
from the time I wake up until about 5:30 p.m., I am talking all day long. I'm either talking or preparing to talk all day long. So I know I did see it on Twitter, like they're in Rucker Park, and I had the same thought, like, oh man, I would have loved to have been there. But when I had that thought, I was getting my makeup done for Time to Shine on CBS Sports Network.
I need a violin drop on this somewhere. Don't have it yet. Regardless, what was I going with that? Scott Drew, living life well. And listen, he's got a 4-year streak of top 3 finishes in the Big 12. In the past 3 years, on the offensive end, Baylor's per possession offense at KenPom, 2, 8, and 2. Second, 8th, and second. So the offense has been rolling. But here's the deal. And did you pick up on this in your old little research? Last year's defense was the worst defensive efficiency that he has had at Baylor since 2006, 2007. That team went 15-16, GP. So in some ways, it's impressive that they went 23-11 despite having a porous, ranked outside the top 100 defense. But this year's team has to be improved on that end of the floor because I don't think Baylor will have. It'll have. Oh, I won't say no shot. It will have almost no shot if the defense is sub 80, and now you've got this Big 12 that's bringing in, most notably Houston, but it's just, it's going to be a little more crowded. And I looked it up. I guess we don't know the Big 12 opponents just yet. It'll still be an 18 game schedule, I suppose, but we don't know who Baylor is getting if the Big 12 is smart, it's going to try and get Baylor with as many high-profile opponents as possible, even if that might be against that Drew and his staff's wishes, because they'd like to not be like the toughest schedule in the league. We'll see about that, but I don't know if they'd be top 3 in the league if they're going to be still outside the top 80 in defensive efficiency, because I don't know. You can inform the folks on this roster situation. I don't know who's going to be the dude. You lose Keyonte George, first round NBA, top 20 NBA talent, right? And he scored 15 a game. You lose Flagler and Cryer, who were good for more than 30 a game and had been the past couple of years, guys who were not perfect players, but relatively reliable bucket getters, right? They are now gone. So you are losing 48, 50 points a night between those guys, close to it. And you do have some guys that are returning and some key freshmen and some transfers. But when I look at Baylor and what's on the roster here, I'm just wondering who's going to be the guy, who's going to have the ball in his hands, who's going to be their alpha. Sure, there might be one that emerges, but I'm not convinced right now that that's an obvious answer.
On the defense stuff, and I would have to look into it a little more deeply to have any sort of real opinions about it. But one thing that is undeniable about last season's team is that they were small, and you can win playing small, I guess, at any level of basketball, college included. But LJ Cryer 6'1", Adam Flagler 6'3", Keyonte George is 6'4", and I'm not sure Keyonte George is 6'4". So they were very little, and typically
he's not. I stood next to him. Let me assure you.
Okay, yeah,
I'm 6'3". Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you can offensively you can be small and get away with it, but you can also pay for it on the defensive end of the court. And I wonder if there's a connection there. Baylor was unusually small and unusually not great or not good defensively. They'll be little bigger this season, I think, if they start something like Ray J. Dennis, Langston Love, Jacoby Walter. That's 6'2", 6'5", 6'5". So it's a little bigger than what they were last year. As for who's going to be the guy, I think there's two guys you point at. One of them is Ray J. Dennis, and the other one is Jacoby Walter. Ray J. Dennis is a transfer from Toledo. Started his career at Boise State, and then he played 2 years at Boise, played 2 years at Toledo. He's taking advantage of the extra COVID year. This will be his 5th year of college basketball. He was terrific last season, 19.5 points, 5.8 assists, 4.3 rebounds in 34 minutes per game. He was the MAC player of the year. He shot nearly 37% from 3 on more than 4 attempts per game. The one thing that I will want to pay attention to as he, transfers up, as we say, is that basically everything he did last season was against a mid-major opponent. They only played one game, Toledo, against a Power 5 opponent. That was Michigan in the NIT, and he was 5 of 19 in that game. So is he just a guy who, ate on mid-major competition and it won't necessarily translate to the Big 12? Or is he somebody who could do this at any level? We'll see. But if you're looking for who's going to be the guy, I think Ray J. Dennis is a good place to start. And it's nice to have a Ray J in college basketball. Ray J's a legend,
Maybe. Are you he's getting that designation right now?
No, I mean the original Ray J.
Yeah,
like maybe the most successful adult film in history.
Okay,
with Kim Kardashian.
Oh, we can't. Yeah, we. Can, I mean,
let's roll a clip. No, we're not.
That's not. I think Nana might have instinctively been like, "Oh, wait, what?"
And now a word from Kim K Superstar. Okay. No, we're not going to do that. But it's nice to have a Ray J in college basketball. Jacoby Walter is just like, he's the latest 5-star guard to enroll at Baylor. He's a 6'5" wing, was ranked 8th in the class of 2023, high volume scorer, more of a wing than a guard, but has developed guard skills in recent years. So if you were to ask me right now, who's going to be the leading scorer at Baylor, I would place a lot of money on either Ray J. Dennis or Jacoby Walter.
Yeah, and remember, Flagler grew into a really good high major player, and he started his career at Presbyterian. So, and they've established this role, so to speak, before, but we'll see. Jaden Nunn's coming over via VCU as well. I would say this: I wouldn't think that with how good George was, like Keyonte George was a top 5 freshman in the country last season. I I'm not sure if Ray J. Dennis is going to be as good as him. I don't know. How about this? Georgia averaged 15 a game, shot 37% from the field. Not great, but he had 4.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists.
Keyonte George had a little Caleb Love in him last season, if we're being honest.
Yeah, a little bit. That's fair. A little bit. I think that's fair. But I'm fascinated to see what Baylor is going to be here, because similar to what we just talked about on our Arkansas episode, there is an established pattern in the past half decade with, even more with Baylor than it is with Arkansas, because Drew has been there longer, of trusting that this team should be good. But that being said, nothing is guaranteed. The Big 12 has been the best league in the country years on years. The majority of the past decade, Baylor's been a huge part of that. And now you get Houston coming in. Cincinnati, I think, is actually going to be pretty decent. We'll see what UCF and BYU provide. And then this is the last year that Texas and Oklahoma will be involved. But I think Oklahoma will be a little bit better. And Texas, now that it's got its head coaching situation firmed up for good with Rodney Terry now the full-time coach there, I think Texas will still be pretty solid. So I find Baylor's spectrum for outcomes to be fairly vast, just because I got to see if Dennis hits it, as the up transfer there.
Oh, Ray J hits it.
Okay, there we go. Should we go win total over under?
Well, just for some context here, I've got Baylor third in the top 20 in the Big 12, 18th in the top 25 and 1. Only behind in the league, Kansas, which I have number 1, and Houston, which I have number 7. It's wild to look at the preseason projections from Torvik, because just you're not used to seeing these names yet in this league. Torvik's got the Big 12 shaking out like this: Kansas 1, Houston 2, Texas 3, TCU 4, Baylor 5. So I've got Baylor third in the Big 12. Torvik's preseason projections have Baylor 5th. Like you noted, Baylor has finished top 3 in the Big 12 4 straight seasons, top 4 5 straight seasons. So if they slip out of the top 4, which is what Torvik is projecting right now, that'll be the first time in a long time that they've done that. Torvik has Texas 6th, Kansas State 7th, Iowa State 8th, BYU 9th, Cincinnati 10th, Oklahoma State 11th, West Virginia 12th, Oklahoma 13th.
Oklahoma 13.
And then, buddy, you better get used to this unless something changes. Central Florida 14th.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that could well be the case. Fascinating stuff on the Big 12. I'm looking forward to come October our conference preview with that, because it's a one and done year with the league being that big, at least with that composition of teams. And I do wonder if the strength of the league, you add more teams, that you'll have a kind of a couple teams at the bottom that kind of weighs it down a little bit. And I wonder if the Big 12 will be able to hold on to its number 1 ranking.
Yeah, just to go through some roster stuff, we talked about Ray J. Dennis. We talked about Jacoby Walter. If you're trying to fill out a starting lineup, you probably also go Langston Love.
Yeah, I think so.
6'5" guard. He averaged 6.3 points, 2.2 rebounds in only 16.6 minutes per game last season. Shot 36.4% from 3. He just was he's a role player. They were loaded in the backcourt last season, so it was hard. Anybody other than Flagler, Cryer, George to get minutes, but Langston Love's probably going to slide into that starting spot, I would assume. Just on paper, it looks like next season. Jalen Bridges, he was good last season. Yeah. Not overwhelmingly good, and it took a minute and a little uneven, but 10.3 points, 5.6 rebounds, 27 minutes per game. He took 3 threes a game. He made only 32% of them, but he is a career 34% three-point shooter, so he's kind of a stretch forward, kind of. And then in the middle, probably Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua. Only had 12 appearances last season. He was recovering from that devastating knee injury the year prior, so he was late to the party, but he's a meaningful player at Baylor and has been for many years now. So if that's the starting lineup, I don't mind that. It's a pretty good starting lineup from my perspective. And the recruiting class is ranked 5th nationally, and they got another top 40 guard in the class of 2023, Miro Little. Eve Misi is a 6'10" center, ranked 40th in the class of 2023. And then there's another transfer, and this guy could be good. Jaden Nunn. This is 6'4", averaged 9 points at VCU last season, shot 40% from 3. So that's 8 deep right there. That's all you need in college basketball, barring injuries, and that's a pretty good top 8.
And Everyday John is like the emotional center of that team. I think
Yeah.
his presence is going to be extremely important to Baylor's bona fides this season. So keep an eye on that. Would agree. So we're thinking Everyday John, Bridges, Langston Love, Dennis, Jacoby Walter, starting 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they will. I think that's probably where they wind up betting. Okay. Regular season win total over under. Here we go. I'm not going to get into the bye games, but Baylor's got some notable stuff on the schedule here. So first, it'll be against Auburn in the Sanford Pentagon, November 7th. Because why wouldn't Baylor and Auburn play in the middle of South Dakota? Shouts to the Pentagon, one of our favorite venues here on the Ion College Basketball Podcast. Then fast forward 15 days on November 22 and 24. The opponents are still to be determined, but Baylor's in the NIT season tip-off at Barclays Center. So I am guessing, so it's Baylor, Pitt, Oregon State, Florida. I'm going to guess that Baylor gets Oregon State. Then we'll, depending on result, we'll either get Pitt or Florida. That's just my anticipation there. It will host Seton Hall December 5th, the Big 12 Big East battle, which has been a thing in recent seasons. And then December 16th, this did get reported early this week, and I can confirm that Michigan State is going to play Baylor in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena. That's on December 16th. That's a really nice matchup there. Both those coaches have been unafraid of scheduling ambitiously in non-con for a long time. Izzo, chief among really almost any other head coach. So that's awesome. And then just 4 days later, Baylor is going to have another neutral. This one did get announced recently, and that's the game against Duke at Madison Square Garden on December 20th. So that's pretty big. Everything else is going to be, I think, a bye game. And because it's the Big 12, and what I saw earlier is not correct, I think the Big 12 is going to stay at 18 league games this season, which means there's 13 non-con games to fill up. Baylor will have a lot of bye game filler. But you get Auburn, you get 2 at the NIT season tip-off, you get Seton Hall, you get MSU, and you get Duke. So you get 6 notable games, although you could argue for some reason they play Oregon State. All due respect to Beaver Fever, maybe not. With that in mind, and we don't know the Big 12 opponents, so we're flying a little blind, I'm going to set the over-under on Baylor's regular season win total at 22.5. Where are you going?
I was going to go 3 non-league losses and 7 league losses because it's the Big 12. Everybody takes 7 league losses except Kansas. So that's 10. 31 minus 10 is 21. Mm-hmm. I don't feel comfortable going the under on Scott Drew. But I just went the under. The math.
Okay. I like it, though.
21 victories heading into the Big 12 tournament.
You know why I like this? Because and one, not knowing, like, okay,
it breaks my heart.
Well, we got to figure like Baylor's going to have a home and home with Kansas and stuff like that. But does Baylor have to go to Houston and doesn't get to host Houston? Like, we don't know that stuff, and it would inform us. But hey, this is the start of the alphabet. You get the earlier show, so we're flying a little blind here. I almost went 21-10, but I said, you know what? I'll go 22-9. And the reason I like this is normally, like, if you go to yours and mine in the short history of us doing this, I'm way more likely to be lower than you. So at least for one team, you are the lower total. And of all the teams, it winds up being Bryce Drew's brother.
This is Bryce, and I don't care.
He doesn't care.
Now, I mean, I don't feel comfortable right now with what
you've done it. It's on the record in perpetuity.
I don't feel comfortable with it.
I got him at 22-9. GP's got Baylor. What'd you say, 11-20 overall?
21-10, but it hurts my heart because Baylor is a part of my heart. I'm like, basically, I feel like I'm a Baylor Bear.
Well, think about how Terry Teagle did the podcast dirty, and maybe you get a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I don't care for that guy anymore.
So there we go. All right, over under 22.5 is the regular season win prediction for these Baylor Bears, who we do expect to be relevant, interesting. Maybe it gets a little bit bumpy. Yes, there's some good challenges in the non-con. We like to see that. You've got them taking 3 L's. Maybe it's Duke, maybe it's Michigan State, and there's just one other mixed in there. I think that's entirely reasonable. But Scott Drew looking to have an NCAA tournament level team. I say NCAA tournament level because they had an NCAA tournament level team in 2020 when we didn't have a tournament. It would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It would be the 10th time in 11 seasons, if that is the case, and we do fully expect it to be the case, that the Baylor Bears are clear and into the NCAAs. And every single one of those previous 9 out of 10 seasons, Baylor has been a single-digit seed 3 times, a one seed level team, and a couple times they've been a 3 seed. So not only are they getting in, they're getting in with these. Speaks to the job he's done, and we've got them, in a tough Big 12 and with a tough non-con and with just an MVP, a stud, an alpha needing to identify themselves, maybe just a little bit lower in the win total than some recent seasons.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck. Shouts to Larnell. And thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. It needs to be reflected in the comments. So thank you in advance if you're going to do that.
I don't know how many we're going to get after a Baylor episode with that. Just
It's a tricky situation,
Yeah,
it's a tricky situation.
But you know what? We bring everyone together. Scott Drew being evidence of that, maybe as much as any other one. So
we bring everybody together.
Yeah,
we bring everybody together. Next up in the summer shoot-around, it's the reigning national champions, the Connecticut Huskies. We'll have that for you real soon.
Next
I don't know.
Next week. It's on Monday. I know. The
Okay,
UConn episode is coming Monday. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.